What's going on all you gamers? Today I'm going to be going over a little bit of news for Outriders the game. So if you want to know what's happening in the world of Outriders, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back all you guys and girls, as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, all the latest and greatest hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay of all the latest games, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon. Now in all honesty, it's been a little while since I've covered Outriders, because to be perfectly honest, there wasn't too much to cover that I hadn't already covered, but yesterday's developers news was actually quite nice, and I feel it's warranted to let everyone know in the community, so let's get on with it. Now first off, they have stated that their upcoming patch isn't released yet, unfortunately. However, they have managed to buff a few items, and I feel this is actually quite good and that people would like to know about it. So it's mainly weapon mods that have been buffed this time, and the weapon mods that they've buffed are these ones coming up. So Winter's Blast has had its AoE range increased to 5 meters where it's previously 4 meters. Ultimate Anomaly Surge has had its damage increased by 137%. It was 25 and now it's doing 34.25 damage. The Claymore Turret has had its explosive damage increased by 210%, which is just massive. They must have made a big boo-boo on that from the start, as that is a really big increase. From 30.6 all the way up to 64.26. Again, I don't think anyone was using that, so now hopefully some people will try it out to see how it works in conjunction with some late game content. Next up, Ultimate Storm Whip has had its damage increased by 140% from 23 all the way up to 32.2 base. That's really nice. Ultimate Storm Whip was a really nice favourite of mine, but it did fall off a little bit at late game. Hopefully now that'll kind of work in people's favour and they'll be able to chuck it into their builds. And finally, String of Ghouls has had its damage increased by 262% from a base of 24.5 all the way to 64. That could actually work in some builds now. String of Ghouls was actually really fun to use. It was just a bit of a nightmare to try and put it into later game content. But now that it's had that base increase, that could actually work quite well and could make for some fun ad clearing. Now they go on to state that the buffs are only the first step towards addressing the aspects of the game which has kind of set the meta. And unfortunately with this, they believe the meta, and rightly so, is pretty much that of Moaning Winds and of course Fortress. Now they don't really go on to say exactly what they're going to do, but they say today's buffs are only our first steps towards addressing those aspects of the above mods meta which we deem to be unhealthy for the development of fun and varied builds in Outriders. It does worry me a little bit, that sentence. I'm hoping that they buff some of the other mods, that they look into kind of building it towards doing more damage and being able to kind of fade away from those. But if they do nerf things such as Fortress, I think they will actually make some builds a little bit less viable and they may make it a bit of a pain. I guess time will tell and we'll see what they're going to do in the future. It could very possibly be that they're going to nerf or degrade those in some way just so that the others scale upwards. Hopefully not. I love Fortress more than anything, but I guess we'll see. Now they go on to mention 3 pillars that are kind of general to the game at the moment. So pillar A is that they believe there's way too much AoE damage mods going on. Obviously that's kind of the way the game's intended, so they're gonna have to address that. Again, they go on to mention Moaning Winds in quite a lot of builds, but I think they will have to change things up, because if they did take away from that aspect, especially for classes such as Devastator, I just don't think the builds would be strong to beat with anything currently. So it'll be fun to see what they do with that. Hopefully they'll buff a lot of other mods instead of just nerfing those ones into the ground. They go on to speak about this in the pillar B. And one thing that I can see them addressing, they said Moaning Winds is therefore vastly outperforming its intended potential. It's not so bad when there's one of them, however when there's 2 or 3 stacking, it can cause an unusual shift in expected playstyles. This to me means they may make it that you can only have one in your build, so that you'll always have that 8-second cooldown. You won't have it on your handgun, and this wouldn't really be the best after that. Moaning Winds wouldn't be the meta. There'll definitely be ones that you can chuck into playstyles that will outperform that, I believe. So I think for myself, the way they've worded this, Moaning Winds will pretty much only be able to be equipped to one of your slots, or even if it's equipped to others, you'll still have that 8-second cooldown between them, meaning that you're not probably going to equip them to the other slots because there'll be no real point or benefit. Now finally, they're saying that the last aspect, and by far the most problematic, is the Fortress mod, which is just this. No, don't do it, no. Fortress is the one reason that I kind of come back to the game now and then, and that's because of how fun the anomaly builds are based around this. The way Fortress currently works usually provides a passive and consistent 43% damage increase to the damage that the player inflicts. In essence, take your normal damage and apply the calculation of 1.43 to it. This does not revolve around gameplay loop, kill, damage, event or any situation, basically meaning that it's up from the start to the end, you've always got that added bonus. In the current DPS orientated endgame, all players will naturally be trying to maximise the damage they are able to output. So the existence in Fortress in its current form essentially blocks a mod slot. By not combining Fortress with your chosen primary mod, you may well be sacrificing DPS, which is a philosophical question we're not comfortable with you needing to face. We want you to have a free choice of multiple different combinations without feeling that you have missed out because you didn't choose Fortress. This statement really, it hurts. I'm not going to lie, it hurts. They're definitely going to do something to Fortress. I don't know exactly what yet, but it seems like it's going to have some kind of a prerequisite, something that makes it activate, or they're going to change it entirely. I don't like the sounds of this. I love Fortress, like I said. I guess time will tell on this one, but I really hope they don't nerf it too much, because if they do, my Pyromancer will probably be staying at home. Finally, they say we also continue to be very aware that a timer-based endgame is part of the problem, in that it forces DPS orientated builds rather than that of survival or just pure fun builds. So again, they have realised there is definitely a problem, and there will continue to be. If that timer's on there, then people will want to clear things as fast as possible, because that's what they have to do. So Pillar A, General AoE is too much, Pillar B, Moaning Winds is too much, and Pillar C, Fortress is pretty much too much. So I think there's going to be some substantial changes to those. I don't know how the community is going to react to these, as a lot of them rely on that to kind of clear the content at the moment. So unless they do change the timer, they do change the whole game structure, those three were definitely the way forward. I'm not sure how many changes and buffs and patches they'll have to do in order to kind of mix that up a little bit and make it so that that's not the case anymore. So yeah, good news with the weapon mods being buffed. Bad news is I can definitely see some addresses to our favourite kind of mods currently, and I don't know how it's going to go down, but definitely some of us are going to feel that. Obviously that could be a ways off in the future, but it definitely looks like they're going to be addressing it at some point to change up the meta altogether. Now last but definitely not least, as I don't want to leave it on any bad terms, if you didn't notice, maybe about a week or even two back, they did actually say, in their general news, they did actually mention the future of Outriders. Now they go on to say, our plans for the future remain unaffected and nothing has changed. We, together with People Can Fly, are continuing to work closely together on improving and expanding the core Outriders experience on all platforms and remain very excited for the future of the game. It is worth mentioning that as our patches to date have and are continuing to address most of the bugs that players may have experienced, our teams are beginning to shift more focus towards working on and implementing much requested new features and content. And that right there is really good to hear. Now obviously a lot of people have been moaning, myself included, because sometimes it has taken them a long time to fix bugs and patch some things that probably shouldn't have taken as long as they have done. Hopefully this statement right there really means that they're looking into the future of Outriders and they will be bringing things out. It says we'll talk more about this New Horizon as well as other Outriders related things we've been working on in the near future. I don't know if Near Horizon means anything, if that's what they're going to call it, a DLC as such, but just speaking about this does give everyone a little bit of hope that there will be a bit of content to play and there will be a little bit more to do in the Outriders universe. Now for myself, I honestly don't think this is going to be hitting anytime soon, so don't think about seeing this side of Christmas, I would imagine, but at least it does mean if you really enjoy Outriders, there will be stuff to do further down the line with some DLC and some added content by the looks of it. Obviously things can change and do change, but fingers crossed, that right there is a nice statement that may help some people and may mean there's a little more endgame coming sometime in the future. Right, all you gamers, I'm not going to go into all of the things they say they've still got a patch, so pretty much the same as I've been doing for the last few months. But all in all, some of that's good, obviously some of it's not. But for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on next day.